When you were upgrading your PC historically, that was something you put thought into. You read reviews, you thought about service, how expandable, do I need to add a graphics card? God forbid, I remember the days where you had to add all the cards. So I don't want, whose network card am I going to put in? What? All of these things. But it's wide open. Today, what they're doing is they're doing traditional computing. They're consuming media, they're browsing the web, they're cruising Facebook. A lot of those Facebook apps that we talked about today are being consumed on these because they're light, they're easy, you can bring them in any room of the house, they're completely wireless. But I think the new opportunities are actually even more compelling to me as we look at the underlying architecture and where this could go. And I think fundamentally what we need to do is we need to help the market realize these opportunities. And we need to do it in a way that provides a framework. And as I mentioned, the market's changed somewhat, and especially in this class of computer. And I think somebody killed the batteries in the remote. Ah, there we go. So the software opportunities are twofold. The software opportunities are to take existing applications. Charles and I were discussing Broken Sword last night. God forbid. Can you imagine Charles wanting to talk about Broken Sword? But we did. We got there eventually. I think it was only the second thing we talked about. But it's absolutely a wonderful application, and we actually talked about the applicability for netbooks because of the spec. And we're in that phase right now, where I'm engaging with all of our large partners and many of the smaller partners that we've dealt with on a number of different initiatives in what I call a closet cleaning exercise. There is great content out there that can be harnessed and repurposed and resold in these platforms, very much like WeWare, very much like XBLA. And to me, I call that mailbox money. That's for a little bit of validation, that will start generating a new annuity on content that's completely sunk cost. But I think we're going to finish that exercise probably by the end of this year. I think we'll have cleaned everyone's cupboards by the end of this year. We'll have what we think is the most appropriate content up in the store, and it'll be and then it's all about looking forward to new content. And that's where I start to get really excited about these platforms, because when it's actually the design point and you're thinking purposefully about how to use this, then it changes the dynamic. And I think that's where this industry can really respond and where consumers will benefit. So, in order to foster that, we've created something called the Intel Atom Developer Program. How many people in the room are actually registered in the developer program? Let me just see. That's not bad. That's good. I was actually surprised. I heard a few at lunch. Other than Blitz, has anyone else actually tried to submit an application to get it validated? Outstanding. First round's on me. And I had an interesting discussion with Chris and Neil at lunch about their experience, and literally was pleasantly surprised when they told us, well, it took 2 times, which isn't bad for a new program. And quite frankly, it was some of the documentation wasn't as clear as possible. They submitted it, they got the corrections that we needed, they submitted it the second time, and it's through, and they're up in the store. And that's exactly the success stories I want to hear, because this should be painless and effortless. The other thing that I'm incredibly excited about for the developer program is that it's not just a store for applications. It's an ecosystem embodied in the way that we have always approached the market. And what I mean by that is our traditional behavior is to go to the market and find tools vendors, middleware vendors, pick gaming. We'll work with engine people, we'll work with lighting people, we'll work with AI people. All of those bits and things that accelerate your time to market and hopefully make it easier to produce the creative product that makes you money. And as you go and do a make versus buy decision, do I staff up and actually write this, or do I go just do a license? We've actually incorporated that into the developer program and into the store and all the way through the economic model. So that if you're not actually making end games, but your specialty is artificial intelligence, you can actually put an AI module into the store for developers. And they can license that directly from you with a back-end royalty model that you get paid based on the titles they're selling based on your code. I truly believe this actually adds a duplicative factor to the innovation that we can have. So rather than just looking at games on another app store and say, hey, those are kind of cool, I think I'll need to go copy those, you can actually look for components that are going to enable you to go do those things, or shorten your time to market and focus on the innovation. So the entire economic model all the way through has been encompassed and is in place today. And we've developed categories that we think encompass the things that people will do. I'm not entirely sold on that. I actually believe we're going to need to add new categories. I hope we actually need to add new categories. Nothing charges me up more in the industry than when we find someone who says, yeah, that's all really great, but you know what you guys totally missed? And they show you this killer little application that just blows your mind. And instantly you know why we do what we do. Because that innovation, because no matter what, we maybe have been doing this, some of us for decades, it's always new. There's always that thing around the corner that makes it feel like the first day you started working in tech. So the proposition for developers is a pretty strong one. Harnessing an economic model that's completely defined, that's completely laid out, that allows you to work the way you want to work and earn the way you should earn. It's a partnership model with OEMs. And I'll show you, we've already got the OEMs moving forward. Later this year, we'll start embedding the App Store on their devices. So we're handling all of what's traditionally the heavy lifting for them in the PC industry. The validation, the market model, the support, one-stop shop to get your app validated, and then it immediately goes into a fan-out through our distribution network through the OEMs. So the Dells, the Asuses, the Acers of the world immediately have access to the catalogs. Originally, we thought they would want to put heavy personalization on their catalogs, and they may still do that. But what we're seeing is we're doing such a good job that they're actually embracing the Intel App Store as the app. We've built the framework so that it can be highly customized. Dell can turn it into the Dell App Store, if that's what they want to call it. And those capabilities are built in there. And we actually believe that the next phase of innovation will be non-hardware vendors. People that have interesting marketing models and can take these catalogs and go market them in a way to reach consumers that maybe the OEMs can't. Whether that's through a Facebook or whether that's through the next phenomenon. My rule of thumb for technology is when people that I think are really old and uninformed show up, I figure we're on the downward slide. Now, I may be wrong about Facebook. That may be a prediction that I'm going to regret for many years. But when my 59-year-old realtor from central New York shows up on Facebook and invites me to be his friend, I'm kind of thinking it's not a cool tech anymore. And I'm looking for that next one around the corner. And having spent about 8 years in Intel Capital, the last panel session, I wanted to grab a chair and jump up and sit down, but I knew I was going to dominate enough of this afternoon, so I stayed out of it. But business models are there. They're always there. There are always people thinking, and there's always something cool around the corner.